Hey guys, what's going on? Jeb here, and in today's video, we're going to be doing a little bit of shorter term and longer term technical analysis on Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency markets, and more specifically to start off with, we're going to be discussing this little bearish breakout that Bitcoin has gone and performed over the last couple of days while I was lying in bed and dying of an illness from which I have no idea where it came from. We'll call it the Spanish Inquisition. That'll be a good name for what has happened to me. I've been Spanish Inquisitioned. But anyway, in that time period, Bitcoin has gone ahead and decided to break bearish out of this ascending wedge pattern that Bitcoin was in over the last couple of weeks. We did break bearish first by trading sideways, and then around 24 hours ago or so, as I was finally starting to not feel like absolute death, Bitcoin decided it did and fell off the metaphorical cliff. Now, of course, Bitcoin didn't fall too far, but I do think this is a premonition of something to come. Bitcoin is down 3%, because if we look out to the weekly chart, then what we're going to find is that Bitcoin stochastic RSI cross out here on the weekly chart has finally come to pass. I've been talking about this for a couple of weeks now, and we have now finally seen that bearish cross. I believe we saw it yesterday. I think the weekly candlesticks update on Monday, so we have seen that. Both of these scenarios on the short term and the long term are very important for Bitcoin. So we're going to be doing some shorter term and longer term technical analysis in today's video. So if you guys enjoyed today's video, I do think we have a good one lined up, even though I can barely sit up, let alone talk. I do think we have a good one. Go ahead and drop a like, hit that subscribe button, and smash the notification bell, guys. Anyway, without much further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. Anyway, since I've been gone for 2 days, I was not going to miss a third day, even though I feel absolutely terrible right now. There's no way I was going to miss today as well. I don't think I've ever missed 3 days in the entire history of this channel in a row, so I wasn't about to start just because of a little sickness that feels absolutely terrible. Anyway, Bitcoin over the last couple of days, of course, broke bullish, then broke bearish, then came back up here to test the same resistance level, was unable to get above it, and as you see sometimes in markets, Bitcoin decided to trade straight sideways out of the level of support rather than breaking bearish out of it. You do see that happen sometimes if we come out here to the daily chart and we see what Bitcoin did over here in September and October of 2018, excuse me. We will see that Bitcoin did a little number like this. If my sick self can go ahead and grab this, we saw that Bitcoin was sitting under a downtrend of resistance like this. As you can see, Bitcoin's trend line like this. Downtrending level of resistance back over here in 2018 looks something like that, but Bitcoin kept trading straight sideways through it instead of actually breaking the resistance level. And of course, part of the reason for that was because Bitcoin was more bearish than bullish and didn't simply have the strength to break bullish, so we kept drawing this trend line differently until we finally ended up drawing it like that, and then Bitcoin broke bearish instead of bullish. And a similar thing happened here over the last couple of days as Bitcoin was trying to break bearish out of this ascending, or trying to get support, I suppose, on this ascending wedge pattern, but was unable. We did trade sideways, and eventually we broke bearish. Bitcoin simply wasn't able to hold that as a level of support, and about 24 hours ago, Bitcoin broke about 3% bearish. Now, with all that in mind, let's go ahead and talk about what Bitcoin might be doing here over the next couple of days, and then we'll continue talking about the longer term stuff in a minute. Anyway, what we saw Bitcoin do here is that in 1 or 2 candlesticks, Bitcoin dropped about $100 in valuation or so. It moved down from around $3,950 to $70 or somewhere right around there in this range. We dropped all the way down here to the absolute bottom of this pullback of around $3,858 or so before having a small little bounce. Now, this is very important. It's very important to look at what the candlesticks are doing sometimes rather than just look at technical indicators. Now, technical analysis by large part is technical indicators, but a lot of times you also want to look at what the market looks like. And right now, this is a very important indicator of what Bitcoin is going to be doing. As we can see here, Bitcoin broke bearish and started moving to the downside. Then, yes, of course, we did have a bounce, but instead of trading sideways or even what might have been better, trading upwards after we saw that bounce, Bitcoin bounced and then started moving to the downside once again. And that's actually a very bad sign. What that means is that Bitcoin had a little bit of bullish momentum that would allow it to bounce, but it wasn't able to hold on to it and did start moving to the downside again. From there, we may see that Bitcoin is able to bounce again and move to the upside, as I'll show you in a bit. Maybe we'll end up seeing something like a double bottom here. We have some RSI stuff to look at on that here in just a second. But it does seem that Bitcoin bouncing here and then falling right back over would be a sign of bearish strength. Now, on the side of the bulls, there is something I want to show you with the RSI here on the hourly chart, and that would be something called double bottom RSI divergence. Now, that sounds like a mouthful, but it's really not that complicated. If you guys aren't familiar with all the different kinds of RSI divergences, they are very powerful indicators. I can show you one that happened very recently, actually. I don't remember if it's on the hourly chart or the weekly chart or the 4-hourly chart. Let me check the 4-hourly chart to make sure we're on the right chart. It is on the 4-hourly chart. I believe it was also on the hourly chart, though. One thing you see here in the last couple of weeks is that Bitcoin had some RSI divergence where Bitcoin was trending upwards. We had an uptrending couple of tops up here, but we had downtrending tops on the RSI. As you can see, that would be called, I believe that would technically be called classical RSI divergence, which is actually a very bullish, a very bearish thing. And as I mentioned a couple videos ago, and that would probably be 4 or 5 days ago since I missed 2, that was one of the early warning signs that I talked about for Bitcoin breaking this uptrend of support on this ascending wedge pattern. I use this to predict this bearish breakout. I've been talking about a bearish breakout like this for a couple of weeks now, and it has finally come to pass. And one of the reasons that I said this would happen, this would go ahead and happen, was because of this RSI divergence. RSI divergence is very powerful. If you guys want to learn more about RSI divergence, I do believe I talk a little bit about it in the Cryptocurrency Technical Analysis Academy, but really simply all you have to do, go to Google, type in RSI divergence cheat sheet, and you'll find a bunch of different pictures showing you about a dozen different types of RSI divergence. There are a lot of different ones that are more powerful than others, that are more commonly found than others, but in general, RSI divergence is rather powerful. And what we're looking at right here is that depending on how you draw this, Bitcoin is looking at what is known as double bottom RSI divergence. As you can see, Bitcoin has made a double bottom here. And I say double bottom in scare quotes because we do have a wick coming down here. This isn't the best scenario for double bottom RSI divergence. Part of the reason I'm showing you this is to introduce you guys to the concept of RSI divergence if you aren't already familiar with it. But what we see here is that Bitcoin in general came down here and set a double bottom, but we're seeing an uptrend on the RSI, as you can see here. Now, what that typically means, that typically signals bullishness for Bitcoin. But as I said, this isn't the best scenario. You can also draw this bottom like this, depending on whether you're using wixes or candlesticks. And by the way, yes, I know the correct plural of wick is wick, and not wixes, or it's wicks, excuse me. I say wixes because I think it's very funny the way it sounds. I've had a couple of people question that in the comment section down below. I am familiar with the proper grammar. I know that the correct plural of wick is wixes. No, anyway. Oh, excuse me. I'm still very sick, by the way. Anyway, continuing on here, this bullish RSI divergence right here, double bottom RSI divergence, would indicate that there's potentially some bullishness coming back to Bitcoin over the next couple of days. Now, whether or not that happens or not, we'll have to see, because there are a lot of bearish indicators on Bitcoin at the current moment. One of them would be the fact that Bitcoin did not play out exactly the way we wanted it to, and we have seen Bitcoin fall over and then fall over once again. Now, that is one thing you want to look out for, but another thing we want to look out for are, of course, our oscillators. It's important to look at the market, but it's also important to look at our oscillators. What we're going to see in the next couple of hours is most likely a bearish cross on the hourly MACD. We also see that stochastic RSI is falling, and we see that RSI is still in the toilet. If we look at 4 hourly, then we're going to see that MACD is very bearish at the moment, is extremely bearish. Same thing on the RSI and the stochastic RSI. Both of them are on the floor. And I believe out on the daily chart, we see something interesting on the MACD as well. And that is, over the last couple of days while I was gone dying in my bed, Bitcoin went ahead and saw a bearish cross on the MACD. Bitcoin is dying as well. No, of course, I'm joking. Bitcoin is doing just fine, but I do think the next couple of weeks are going to be rather bearish for Bitcoin. Now, with all that said, that kind of leads us into the prediction for the short term, and then we'll start moving on to the long term. Bitcoin over the next couple of weeks, over the next couple of days, is looking rather bearish in my opinion. Now, there are a few things that you could say that are bullish for Bitcoin. One of them would be that type of RSI divergence I mentioned. But I'll be fair to this. A lot of times, different technical indicators are powerful because people look at them. And that is one of my philosophies in technical analysis, is that if no one looks at a technical indicator, what use does it have? Because the market is completely driven by the traders in said market. And not many people know about something called double bottom RSI divergence, nor is this a great example of double bottom RSI divergence. The main reason I brought that up is because I wanted to introduce you guys to the world of RSI divergences, because they are actually rather powerful. This is one of the least powerful ones. With all of that said, it is a niche one and it is an interesting one. But also, this is one of the only bullish things for Bitcoin right now. Bitcoin has only broken 3%, and based on all the technical analysis I've done today, and in the past couple of weeks, Bitcoin seems like it needs some more bearishness. And that leads us out to the weekly chart. I think the next couple of days for Bitcoin are going to be bearish or neutral at best. But if we move out to the long-term technical analysis, what we see is that while the MACD is just as bullish as ever, we do see that stochastic RSI has crossed. And as I've talked about in previous videos, whenever stochastic RSI crosses bearish like that, we almost invariably see a crash in Bitcoin. Right over here in July, for example, right over here in April, for example. Go back and watch the videos on the channel where I've talked about this. You almost always see a bearish cross on the stochastic RSI in coordination, similar to right around the time that you see a downtrend in Bitcoin, and a rather substantial one as well. So what I expect to see here is we're probably going to see quite a bit more bearishness coming out of Bitcoin here over the next couple of weeks. partially due to the stochastic RSI. Now, guys, there's a little bit more stuff that I want to talk about on the weekly chart, but I will be totally honest, my voice feels like it's about to up and abandon me and go somewhere else, and I'm never going to see it again if I keep talking. So, guys, I'm going to put off part of the longer-term technical analysis for tomorrow's video because I don't want to go into a coughing fit with you guys. I do apologize for missing 2 videos, and I do apologize that this one is a bit shorter than usual, but I do appreciate you guys having patience with me. Anyway, guys, that is going to do it for today's video. For now, anyway, I may post another video today, but don't count on it because I still feel pretty bad. Anyway, guys, thank you for your support as always, and I will be seeing you guys in the next video. Peace.